Think about the worst crash out you've ever had in solo queue. And now think what it actually cost you. Mine cost me 900 LP plus a 2-week ban. Pretty bad, huh? Here's the truth. Tilt, even a little bit of it, is the number one thing holding you back from climbing. Most players already know that. What they don't know is how to fix it. So in today's video, I'm giving you the 5 steps to become untiltable so you stop wasting time grinding for LP that you shouldn't have even lost anyway. So the first step is relatively simple, but it's a very important one. The first thing you want to do is locate and recognize a tilt. If you don't know you're actually tilted, you can't resolve it as well. You have to accept it. This brings me back to, I think I've ever seen a clip from Crowny from Los Ratones, where he was screaming at the top of his lungs, "I'm not tilted!" Of course you're tilted whenever you get that heavy of an emotional reaction to it, of course, right? So how do you locate tilt, right? This is step number 1. You need to get in tune with your negative feelings. If you ever feel frustration, sadness, anger, if you feel annoyed, any negative feelings, you want to really feel, recognize that they are, and understand that this is your body manifesting it in tilt. There's been many studies done on the effect of labeling negative emotions, and already the fact that you're labeling your negative emotions and recognizing that it's there helps you deal with them. It basically is name it to tame it. The next step is becoming self-aware, and this is by far the hardest step, so bear with me, guys. Tilt is negative emotions manifesting itself, and underneath them is almost always some form of fear or ego. And the truth is that if you want to deal with tilt, you have to go steps deeper. You cannot stay surface level. If you're just going to take like the temporary fix, for example, like you just put on a bandage, then once you get to that exact same point again in maybe a couple of days or a couple of weeks, you're going to go straight back into your old pattern. You're going to spiral in your tilt, and you're not going to be able to get past your plateau points and actually climb. And that's eventually what we want to do. So the key is to go deeper and look at these fears or look at your ego. These usually actually go hand in hand, and then figure out the solutions to them. A bit of an example I want to give, because a lot of people think that some people can tilt you, okay? That tilt is external. Tilt is actually not external, right? And I used to believe that tilt was external too. So in the past, right, when my bot lane would feed, what would happen is that I would get really mad at them because they were ruining my game. But a teammate, how bad they can play, right, and even if they go AFK or whatever happens, right, they can't actually make you tilted. It is up to you. It's your free will choice to respond to what they do. So you got to keep in mind that in that regard, your ability to respond and the way you respond is your emotions going outwards. And couple of years ago, let's say 8 years ago, when I played the game, I would have went incredibly mad at my teammates running me down. But right now, I smile about it. I actually don't let it affect me anymore. So it's my reaction that's the difference maker. This is something that a lot of people don't really understand. So let's go back to this negative emotion and to this. Let's go a layer deeper to really become self-aware of the core problem. You want to locate the underlying fear that you have that manifests itself through tilt. And you do that by asking yourself a deeper why question or how questions, and just asking yourself a layer of questions, really trying to get to the core. And the truth is, for 40 to 30% of people watching this video right now, you guys aren't going to be ready yet to get to the answers to this position. And that's okay, right? Not everyone is going to be ready yet to find their core issues because of your mindset. Like, you really need to be open-minded and introspective. And if that is not something that you can do, right, I've got a little bit of an a little bit more practical toolkit for you guys in a previous video that I uploaded a year ago. I'm going to link it at the end. I'm going to link it in the description. I'm going to link it up right here as well. So check that one out. But for everyone willing to go deeper, let's go deeper here and let's really finish tilt. So you want to go a layer deeper and ask yourself the question, why does it frustrate me that I make a mistake, right? Why does it frustrate me? Why do I get pissed when my jungler ints or when someone goes AFK? Well, the underlying reason is one of many fears. I'm going to list a few examples, but in the end, this is kind of what it comes down back to, right? The fear of not being good enough. If you make that mistake that you've been making for months and months and months, and you're trying to get rid of it, but it still appears, you can feel extremely tilted, because it makes you feel like you're not good enough to just fix that thing, and that can tilt you and, of course, make it worse. The fear of being judged. This can be external in many different ways. You can fear of being judged by your teammates. If you're playing mediocre and you're maybe playing in a higher lobby than you normally do, so you're a little bit on edge, and then you make a mistake and then you're scared of getting judged. So you start playing very tilted and very defensive. But you can also be fear of being judged by, for example, your rank. This is something that I personally really struggled with when I was younger, is that the difference between me being platinum or diamond, we didn't have emerald back in the day, was, for example, me feeling good about myself or bad about myself because I was scared of being judged. Or even better, the moment I started as a coach, um, when I started the year beforehand, I was challenger, and then when I was actually coaching, I got more busy. I played less league, but I was master tier, high in the master tier instead of actually grandmaster or challenger. And what happened to me is that I wanted to get back to challenger, but I got extremely frustrated because I was like, okay, as a coach, I need to be challenger because everyone's judging me, right? I'm making all this, I'm teaching people the game. I need to be the best at the game, right? And that was actually an inhibitor factor for me climbing. So these are all real fears, guys. And probably you experience multiple of them or even combining them. Now, this is one that's very league specific, the fear of losing control. There's a lot of players that extremely struggle with not having control of the outcome of the game, which is, for example, when your bot lane ends and you just lose. That is an absolute fear of them. And that's okay, right? It's just being aware that this is a fear that you can have. There's solutions to that. I will get to that in a second and at the end. So keep in mind that there's also ego-driven fears. Okay, a very common quote that I see is, "How can I lose even though I'm better this guy? I just went 30 CS, I got a solo kill onto him, and I still lose the game to this guy." Right? This is a bit of a ego. Basically telling to you, look how good you are, but in the actual moment, you're actually not that good, because it's an ego fear. It's the ego disguising himself as good, which basically is the same as the fear of not being good enough. Or injustice, right? That's also, why does it happen to me again that I get all these feeding bot lanes? This is the power of the fear of losing control. It's the same story in a different jacket. So I'm going to share you guys two stories from my personal experience, and I'm going to reflect on you guys and basically go back and figure out what the core fear was. So when I was 16, in my IRL situation, shit didn't go well. Okay, well, I just had a really bad year. School, everything just went bad. So what happened is that I turned to League as an escape. I was playing League all day, every day, and at that point, I was because I was playing so much, I was tying my self-worth towards my rank, which means that if I would lose a game or when a game would go bad, I would go in just panic mode. I would get extremely mad and I would start flaming my teammates. And the reason why that was because, very simply, because my self-worth is tied to my rank, right? Me winning the game would make me feel good about myself, and me losing the game would make me feel bad about myself. And in the end, that all ties back to the fear of not being good enough. But at that time, I didn't know that that was the fear that I had, that I was actually just extremely insecure. Like, really insecure is what I was about myself. And of course, eventually, I fixed that by becoming more secure in myself, by getting different hobbies, by going out in the world, exploring things, and not only having League as my hobby. But it would have been so much easier for me to understand to do that due to me locating the underlying fear. And not only would that then have an easier time me fixing the fear outside of league specific, but also inside of league specific, because there's ways to deal with that as long as you can accept it. And we're going to get to that in the next slides. The other one that I mentioned is when I started as a coach, right? Whenever you got a year coaching experience, it's not that much. You're trying to teach people the game, and then you're 400 LP master. Keep in mind, back at the time, Grandmaster was 500, Challenger was like 750 or something like that. So um, it wasn't all too crazy. I was still fine at the game, but in my mind, I needed to be Challenger um, to have that ability to even talk about the game. I didn't. It didn't feel like I was allowed to do it if I wasn't at the best rank. And that's just purely the fear of being judged and the fear of not being good enough combining at the same time. And this manifested in my league gameplay. And you know what the fun part is? The way that I got away from that tilt and away from that fear was when I actually asked for help. And this was then, of course, being negated. Instead of me feeling judged by other people, even other coaches inside my coaching program, I actually reached out to AJ. AJ and me then did review sessions together. And within a couple of months, I was back in Challenger. Because I got rid of this fear, I was able to show my worst gameplay to him, and we were able to eventually get through it. And it's now really nice looking back at that because now I can understand. But back then I didn't have a toolkit or know how to deal with it. Matter of fact, I didn't even realize probably that I was tilted. I was probably in the first section where I was screaming at the top one lungs, I'm not tilted, while actually being incredibly tilted. So becoming self-aware, guys, to really wrap this up, is incredibly hard. It takes a lot of introspection. It takes also open-mindedness and just saying to yourself that you're gaslighting yourself for a longer time. It takes an identity shift. And that's why some people will not be able to do this, because this is a very hard thing to do. But if you can locate the underlying fear, and if you can then be okay with having it, this is the most crucial step to just becoming not only getting rid of your fear, but also just improving your quality of life as a human being. So a little bit of life lessons here from this old timer, huh? So step 3 is owning the fear. After you've recognized it, own it and understand that it's there and understand that it's part of you. Accept it. And then you can go and look at your actions and you can kind of reverse engineer it so you understand where it comes from. Okay, it seems like I have this problem of not feeling like I'm good enough, and that's why it annoys me when I make a mistake. And then we're going to really complete the circle in step 4, and that's when everything starts to click. But it looks like I'm scared to lose control about the output of my efforts. So I put so much effort in, and then I lose this game because my teammates are losing, and we just lose the game. You know, that happens, and that's what makes me angry. And then you can understand where these emotions come from. And you got to be okay with having these fears, right? We're all human, and it's part of who we are. And then at step number 4, once we've recognized it, owned it, we now want to reconnect the feeling that we did in step 1 to step 4. Because once again, we're human. We're going to keep feeling these emotions during the game. So this is very simply how you deal with it during the game, okay? You notice the signal, right? Your emotions or your urge to type in chat, whatever your response is to, of course, this emotion. You want to take a breath, right? Before actually immediately reacting, take one of this, a very small amount of time to recalibrate and get logic into the mix instead of just your emotions, because otherwise you can just go. But once you get some logic into the mix, you can have a way easier time of dealing with it. And then you want to connect that fear that you've had to your emotion, and you can then recognize it. And the moment you start recognizing it, what happens is that you become peaceful and you actually get rid of the bad emotion because you know where it's coming from, you know what the original cause is, and then also how to fix it. And then in game, very specifically, because you've made peace with it, you can now move on to the next play. And this all happens in like 3 seconds in your mind, right? It doesn't take that long. And that allows you to immediately log back in and then ask yourself the question, what's the next play? And this really warps you back into the gameplay that allows you to then focus on killing the enemy nexus and not getting stuck up or sucked up in the emotional fear. Now, of course, you got to keep in mind that there is a lot of this doesn't fix your situation overnight. Okay, there is two parts of solving this. You got the in-game way of solving this, in which that you every single time that this happens, right, you do it so that you build the habit of connecting your emotions to your fears and then building peace and then moving on to what's next. That's how you deal with it in game. But there's also a position where you got to deal with it out game. You got to figure out where do these fears come from, and you got to really tackle the underlying fear. And if this means that you are insecure because you're not feeling good enough about yourself, this step-by-step protocol will only help you so far in game. If you like truly want to eliminate the tilt, the best way of going about it is, of course, by tackling that fear outside in your life and working on it there. Because if you do that and combine it with this, that's when it really is going to get a lot of results really quickly. And like I mentioned, I made a previous video on tilt, and in that video, I go extremely deep on how this applies to league specifically, external tilt, internal tilt, toolkits, other toolkits to deal with tilt. I talk about how to deal with expectations upon yourself. This is basically a tilt applied video that is one that you need to watch, because if you combine that information with this information, you really put it in the league jacket and have a really easy time then dealing with it. Just to finish this off here, right? Once you're able to connect the feeling to the fear, and you do that every single time you come in game, what happens is that over time, the fear will become less, the tilt will become less, and that puts you in a position where you're going to have an easier time dealing with it. Okay, that's how you become eventually untiltable. And it does take time. For some people, it takes 8 months. For some people, it takes 5 weeks once they've recognized the fear and they're working on it, right? That's okay. And for some people, it took 3 years, right? For me, it's been a very long time process in which that I've had a lot of success, and I've definitely massively grown as a player and as a person. But there's also still times where you can sometimes have a bit of a fallback or something bad happens. I am a very happy person, right? A very positive guy. But there's gonna be a game sometimes that gets me the fucking blood on my nails, dude. And that's okay. But I realize it very quickly. I just quit playing for that day and I reflect and I know where it comes from. And then I have peace with it. And then the day after I can just show up. And then this happens like once a month or something like that. It's very, very, very minimal. The final thing I want to mention, right, is beware the tilt about the tilt trap. Okay. This is basically a trap that your ego puts up that puts you in a position where you get frustrated at yourself because you're trying to work on something and it's not manifesting itself into success just yet. So you are getting really frustrated at yourself that you're still getting frustrated at the game. And that is a big trap to fall into. So accept that it takes time. Accept that it's not easy to remove, but accept that following these steps will put you in the right direction. Now, once again, final time, I'm going to link you guys to that other video that I made a year ago. Insanely important watch. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Leave me a comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys real soon in a new video. Peace out.